Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers. Do you have any breaking news before we start?
There's a lot of breaking news. There was this famous sighting in Ohio. I'm going to play the music. I got so many emails about this UFO sighting. Many people were seeing it all over the place. Got dozens and dozens of emails. It's just hovering there. And man, I got some great pictures. And because of that, I was able to figure out what it was. It was a weather balloon, an actual goodness weather balloon. And
Like a
sure enough,
real weather balloon?
a real weather balloon of all the times that everybody got UFO footage. It was a weather balloon. I can safely debunk that one, gang. And sure enough, one of the National Weather Centers had lost control of their weather balloon and it traveled away from where they wanted it to.
Oh my goodness. I mean, like, what are the odds that it's ever actually a weather balloon?
I know, it's crazy. I was laughing so hard on that. Man, it looked great. I was like, "Oh my gosh, we finally got," and I was still thinking it was something for Wright Pat, a test flight or something for Wright Patterson. But no, it was a weather balloon. I couldn't believe it. It was so great.
Fully appreciate fully appreciate that completely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know we've had a lot of stuff. Things are moving and shaking. We're wrapping up the book. Um, but somehow, even though I've been reading tons of Civil War history from you, you managed to come up with more.
Well,
So,
there's this thing called, July 4th, 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of our country that you and I were born in. So,
yes.
I thought for this month, we would do just 4 weeks of American weirdness, hauntings, ghosts, legends, cryptids. I mean, we do the bulk in America, but we do some all around the world. But I thought these would be important American ones to focus on for the next few weeks. I thought that would be good for us. So
Kind of love that. Yeah.
one of my earliest memories is going on the Freedom Train in 1976 when it was the 200th
What is the
anniversary.
Freedom Train?
It was this thing they went all around the country, in 1976 in an old train that had all sorts of museum stuff from, American history, and it was pretty cool. It was a neat thing to do, and like I said, I was 5 or 6. I was 5 when that happened, so I don't remember it well, but I remember the train was all American colors, and it was pretty cool, and I think Evel Knievel did some stunts while we were there.
I will appreciate all of this happening. I
Yeah.
like it.
Won't see a Freedom Train this year. But anyway, let's get to it because we got a lot to get through today. So, and I'm going to start with this acorn.
Okay.
Okay. This is at the Museum of the Confederacy in Richmond, Virginia. And at one point, this was there, and it was this small brass acorn about an inch long. Now, according to legend, a Confederate courier used to hide messages in this, and then he would carry it to the front lines. Now, how did he hide the messages even more? Well, this was inserted into a very private place in this
How private?
down below. So
Was it in did they go through the front door or the back door?
the back door.
Oh my goodness.
This is known as the rectal acorn. So,
Ugh, no, that's not something you want to be known as.
yep, it was meant to be carried internally and then retrieved and wiped clean for the next dispatch. So
I don't have any of that.
a modern collector offered to buy it, and the owner refused to part with it, mostly because we don't really know if it really was this or not. That's just the legend, that's the story behind it. But, yeah, it's attached to a name that will come up later, but I had to start with this just to show you how weird the Civil War was. I mean, it is stranger than fiction, and we're gonna go all
Yeah.
over it.
Okay, well, this just got really awkward, but I appreciate it. So, let's do it.
Okay, so that's the bar is set, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so there's this quiet farm in North Carolina. Hey, we live there, and, there were 2 men who lived as one. They were
'Kay.
Chang and Eng, the Bunker brothers. They were the original Siamese twins. They were joined
Oh,
by some weird band of flesh, and, they shared a couple organs, and they had settled there long before the Civil War, and they married 2 sisters,
okay.
and they fathered 21 children between the 2 of them. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and they were prosperous slaveholding farmers
I
out
don't
near
believe
the
that last part, but oh
I
my
know, but
gosh.
it was the time. So,
Yeah,
the main problem is they are inseparable, right? Physically inseparable, and
yeah,
one got conscripted to join the army for
okay.
the Civil War, not the other one. How do you do it? Yeah,
Uh,
so, they had no protocol for this, the army did not. So, the draft notice was dropped, but 3 of their sons did have to go to, war and fight for the gray.
okay.
Several others wound up going to war, and, later on, so 7 of the boys wound up fighting in the Civil War, and that's just how is that?
A
You know
third of their kids ended up doing it?
Yes, 1/3 of their kids wound up fighting in the Civil War, and these 2
Okay.
men stayed home, so because how you gonna do it? Plus, I think it would've been tough to find a uniform for 'em.
Yeah, no, that's, accurate, accurate, okay.
Okay, so that's to start. Now, we're gonna get a little weird here because these aren't weird enough. Alright, so Battle of Shiloh in 1862.
Yeah,
There was mud, it was rainy, it was terrible. A lot of men were, getting sick, dying from infection after the battles
yes.
and during all that, and what happened was the men all reported seeing this blue-green glowing glow coming out of their own injuries.
Wait, whoa,
Yeah.
you just said green glowing coming out of their injuries?
Yes. This strange
Uh,
luminescence was coming out of their injuries,
I
and
don't like any of that. No.
this is widely reported, and those who, quote, "shone" was what they call it, I assume like The Shining. They seemed to heal faster, and they survived much longer than any ones that didn't shine. We have
Okay,
no
that's a s
idea. Yeah, they called it the Angel of Shiloh, it was called the Miracle of Shiloh. For 140 years, this was dismissed as myth,
yes.
and now I call it preternatural, right? Because it's just something we didn't
Mhm.
understand. 2001, 2 Maryland teenagers, a guy named Bill Martin and John Curtis, they were interested in this, and they started a research thing on it, and they discovered that a bioluminescent bacterium, and I will try to pronounce it, Photohabus luminescens, my Latin kinda kicked in there, it
Okay.
lived in the guts and, lives in nematodes. So when a soldier is laying cold and hypothermic, and they're
Mhm.
in the West Tennessee soil, these bacteria could multiply in a wound and would give off a faint, eerie light, a light green glow. And that bac
Interesting.
and that bacteria, some of them release antibiotics, and they would have killed off most of the dangerous pathogens. So the men who glowed weren't, you know, cured by angels. Well, kinda they were cured by a miracle because they were being naturally medicated. And it's one of those fascinating to me, right? That is
That is
preternatural.
that is so bizarre. So there's a real thing that happened, but because we didn't have the medical science at the time to be able to identify it, it was like but now it is identified, so it's not preternatural?
We're not 100% certain, but that is yeah, so it was folklore and now it's science. So,
Yeah.
these guys won an award for it. They have not it has not been conclusive because nobody was there. We don't know 100%, and it's not like we can the bones of those guys would give us much DNA of these, pathogens or anything because they would have been long gone too. But it is a fascinating just a fascinating thing. Just shows, medical in the period was a lot of craziness. This was, we were first getting first battlefield amputations, um,
Mhm.
and other stuff like that. This is also when we first started really using prosthetics. Um, I mean, they'd had wooden legs and peg legs and stuff like that before, and a few you know, medieval generals had metal hands and stuff, but this was first time we started trying to make it fancy. So, all right, here we go. Let's move on to the next one. All right, 1863. A Confederate soldier was in a field hospital with a fractured skull.
Okay.
A piece of bone had splintered, but it remained attached. And the surgeons, they'd already been overworked by battlefield stuff constantly. So they were like, we're afraid to touch it. Even a wrong move will kill him. So they left the wound covered with a poultice and were trying to help other people. And they just let him there for like the night. And that night, a rat crept in and it was attracted by the smell of all the bodies and everything. And it went up to that poultice and it gnawed at the soldier's head. And by morning, the loose bone fragment had disappeared. It had been chewed cleanly away by the rat. So
Okay.
he lived. He lived. He was fine. And the newspaper report of it, quote, a skillful operation. It's just, I mean, it's unsanitary and completely, and I love the grotesque humor of the newspaper there. That was just wonderful. But the guy lived another 20 years. He was fine. So I
Wow.
shades of Ratatouille, I guess. Yeah.
That's super gross, but at the same time, I don't think a lot of people realize, how frequently back then maggots were used and can still be used today if to eat an infected area. Like, I don't think
Yep.
people realize certain but leeches were
Yep.
used
Oh, yeah.
for good and bad, but, I mean, they had the kinda right idea that the blood needed to
Th
be clean.
what's
But I
weird is they're bringing leeches back, in a
yeah.
couple places. So,
I don't think that's weird necessarily because there's a function some of these
yeah.
animals have that, is part of I hate to say it, but kind of the evolutionary system here, and
Yeah. Nature
yeah,
finds a way. Nature finds a way.
yeah. So
Miracles in nature. So,
you
we'll
could
have to do a
have
special on that at some point. Miracles in nature.
yeah,
So, all right. Anyway, so, all right, battle in Nashville,
okay.
1864. Captain Roland E. Hackett took a bullet to the mouth and
Yeah.
smashed out 3 of his teeth. Then it took the long way out, came through his digestive tract, and emerged
Oh,
3 days later, naturally. And he lived on to tell the tale. Now, similarly, Private James T. Dowdy in Gettysburg, a mini ball hit his abdomen. And then, according to the doctors, after a week of discomfort, he passed it in the usual manner. So,
wow.
both these men became celebrities, and their stories were circulated in newspapers as miraculous. And it just shows, hey, the body is weird, right? We do some weird things.
Body can be amazing,
Yeah,
like, I think that it can be, and especially when somebody's survival, their drive to survive is so intense, I think absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I
Like,
mean,
but it's amazing because you get a bullet, you're in search of the bullet, right?
yeah. All right. So now I got to get into a couple odd folks
Okay,
of the war. General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, military genius on the gray side, but he was
okay,
also what many people don't know. He was a hypochondriac of the highest order. Um, he
okay.
believed that his body was perpetually, quote, out of balance. And so to restore equilibrium, he rode into battle with one arm raised in the air, like always. And then,
Like,
yeah,
hand up?
hello. Yeah, like waving hello. He refused to eat pepper because he thought it weakened his left leg, okay?
Just his left leg?
Just his left leg, just his left leg, and he would dunk his entire head in cold water every morning, convinced that it would help fix his eyesight. So, we think he might have
Like,
been nearsighted, but he never wore glasses. So,
that is something,
yeah,
something
I mean,
there.
some people say taking a cold shower helps, in the morning. So, I
I guess so, right?
I gotta have a steaming hot bath. I gotta look like a lobster when I come out. I gotta have remove 3 layers of skin when I come out. That's the only way I feel clean.
Well, you
His
know,
other
though, there's a lot of people not th those are weird. Those are super weird, but there are a lot of people that have certain things that they do like that, that are habits. Like, I wanna know where he thought raising a
I'm
hair.
sure somebody told him this at some point, and he just kept I'm sure he had to stretch for something, and then he just kept that the rest. I mean, it sounds like he was on the spectrum a little bit. I
Oh,
mean, he
yeah,
was
yeah.
a tactical genius, and he could see things that others couldn't and all that. He did sit, like, ramrod straight at all times. He was worried that slouching would rearrange his internal organs. So, yeah.
Okay.
He was deeply and wonderfully strange. So,
He
he was
sounds
also
like it, yes.
relentless. He was relentless in battle. Okay. So another on the South Side, General Longstreet, at Antietam, the single bloodiest day in American history. We'll get back to that. That's actually on the skirts of our new book. Available in fine bookstores soon. But
Ah,
Conf- so Confederate General James Longstreet, he fought in the Battle of Antietam in carpet slippers. Earlier that day,
okay.
he'd injured his foot and his dress boots were just too painful. So he's directing thousands of men under a hail of fire, and he's wearing soft, comfortable house shoes. So,
Slippers?
like slippers, carpet slippers. So,
Wow. Okay.
that just a little detail. I love reading about things like that. So, now we'll go over to the Union side for the blue. Sherman, Union General William Tecumseh Sherman. There was one day. Details are a little fuzzy, but he was on a ferry heading across the water to recon a position, and the ferry hit some bad weather or something in the river. No one really knows, and he got thrown off the ferry, and the ferry sank. Now, the rescue boat comes out and picks him up, and then as it picks him up, he gets on it. They start going back. Whatever knocked him over knocks him over again, and that boat sinks. So he finally gets rescued out of very icy water, and he's fine. But so talk about a man followed by chaos. That should tell you something. When you have 2 shipwrecks in one day,
Yeah,
something's out to get you. That was long before
understatement.
his march to the sea. But man, I think he had somebody on his side there. All right, so
Yes.
somebody was fighting against him, somebody was fighting for him. That's very Ulysses there. So,
Very,
uh,
very true.
very true. All right. So, all right. Now we got that. Now, General Grant, this is just a goofy thing. I can't find much
So,
on it.
wait, I need to hold on. It just all sank in. So this guy's on boats, and some unseen force launches him to safety, not once, but twice. Like, "Hey, really, you shouldn't be on this river."
Yeah. Well, he
Or
gets
one could
back
flip
into
the
the water
tides
twice.
and
Yeah.
say that he brought upon this watery demise by some, I don't know, unseen force.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
so
It's like,
bizarre to me.
I think Poseidon wanted him drowned, and then, Zeus wanted him back on the land or something like that. That's exactly my thoughts. So,
Oh my
um,
goodness. Okay. Well,
all right.
well done. Well,
All right. So, now during the Battle of Vicksburg, which was the whole campaign, of Vicksburg, Ulysses S. Grant, he rode a horse named Kangaroo. Now, no one knows why the animal got that name. No one really knows anything about it, but it is funny because it's in every dispatch about the campaign is code word kangaroo. And I just it's funny because you're reading these terrible battlefield statistics and who was fighting who and all that, and then kangaroo was there.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, that's a dumb one. I just had to put it in there. Okay, so
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I Mary Todd Lincoln in the White House.
Okay.
He was her son Willie had died, and so she was grieving, and she became a devoted spiritualist. And so she started holding
Okay.
seances in the White House. This is a well-known thing, and she was believing that the ghost whispered military secrets to her, and that she would pass those secrets on to her husband, Abraham. And now Abraham Lincoln was very patient with her for a lot of reasons. And so he attended at least a few of these sessions. And we don't know what happened in those sessions. They're not documented. We just know he was there. And
Okay.
it wouldn't be till Nancy Reagan later, I think, that we didn't start doing that again. So, um, all right. All right. So now I'm going to get into these guys a little bit later, but there was the North was not completely unified. There
Okay.
were anti-war Democrats, and they were called the Copperheads by their enemies, and they openly resisted the draft. And in Ohio, a mob of conscripted men beat a Union agent bloody when they tried to sign him up.
Oh my
In
goodness.
Indiana, there was a secret society called the Sons of Liberty that were plotting to overthrow the US government. So there was a civil war in the North while it was still a civil war between the North and South. And the South had its own issues with that too. But we'll get back to Copperhead conspiracy stuff because there's a little bit more in that in a bit. Um,
Okay.
Now, when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, they found a $5 Confederate bill in his wallet. And he had been in Richmond just a few days before, so we figure he picked it up there. But the Confederate capital was still, smoldering at that point. But it's just kind of a weird thing why no one knows if he was carrying it as a good luck charm or something, or it may have been a bad luck charm. But, why would Lincoln carry a $5 Confederate bill is just one of those mysteries of the Civil War we do not know, or post-Civil War. So,
Maybe it
um
was to remember. I mean, one of the things that I think some people don't know about Abraham Lincoln, and there's a great book about it. We'll link it in the show notes. It's about the Lincoln letters.
yeah.
And one of the things he did, and I've talked to people about this because it's something you can do along our whole band of intention type stuff, right?
Mm,
Is he would write letters to people of the things he wanted to communicate to them, but he was never intending to give those letters to those
mhm.
people. It was more like just to get out the communication. And I sometimes tell people this is a good thing to do. And especially if they're upset about a situation, because sometimes talking to people is not actually going to resolve it. Like they don't want to fix it, or you know what I mean? It's,
Yeah.
uh, some form of abusive type relationship where maybe it's even mental abuse or whatever, but you write these letters. So I'm wondering if maybe he took that $5 bill with the intention of writing a letter,
Yeah, it's quite possible. We don't know. It's
you
an
know?
unusual thing. So, alright, so one more before we take the break, and that
Okay.
is there were more medals of honor awarded during the Civil War than in World War One, World War Two, and the Vietnam War combined. The the standards were a little different, I guess, because it was a much lower bar back then. One soldier officially received the Medal of Honor for reenlisting.
You know what? It sounds like they were way more generous. That's what I'm
Yeah,
going
a
to
little
say. It
more.
sounds like
Uh, yeah, there's an entire regiment, the 27th Maine. They had all received the Medal of Honor as a regiment, and then it was revoked after investigators realized they hadn't actually been where they were given their Medal of Honor, and they hadn't ever actually done anything super heroic or heroic at all. So, so it was completely revoked. I I would
how
lo I would
does
love
it feel when somebody revokes your Medal of Honor?
I mean, that's pretty terrible, but I can imagine that those guys were like, "Woo, we got Medal of Honors," and then years later, they were like, "Oh, it's going away." Well, we had it for a little bit. And, we
I
hadn't
love
really
it.
done much. So, all right. Well, we got a couple minutes, so we'll go a couple little things before we
Okay.
go to the break. We're gonna talk some high-tech warfare. The Union was the first major war after the Industrial Revolution, Civil War. So in spring of 1861, this, eccentric guy came out named, Thaddeus Lowe, and he launched a balloon, called the Enterprise from a vacant lot in Cincinnati, and he began the first military air reconnaissance corps in American history. And
Mhm.
so he had this gift for showmanship. He had the ships were called the Constitution, the Intrepid, which is named after famous boats and all this. And each balloon was like this marvel of craftsmanship. They were made of thousands of square feet of double layered silk, multiple coats of varnish, and that made it airtight. And from 1861 to 1863, he had 7 balloons. He hired a team of aeronauts and conducted thousands of flights. And President Lincoln took a keen interest, and so he would have Low telegraph enemy positions from above. They ran telegraph lines up to the balloon so it could telegraph down to the guys. And again, the balloons became targets, but after a while, when they realized what they were, uh, for 2 years, they were in service, and, pretty cool. And I love it was from Cincinnati, not far from Wright Field.
Oh,
So,
wow. Wow.
early aeronauts in that place. And I'm sure they were reported as UFOs as well, but they weren't weather
Oh,
balloons.
yeah. Well, they were unidentified at the
Yeah,
time.
I'm sure nobody had seen those much, so all right, well, we'll talk more strange Civil War, and don't worry, we're getting to the ghosts after the break. Woohoo! More Civil War.
Woo!
Am I boring you yet, Erica, or are you finding this interesting?
No, I think it's interesting to become educated as parts of our history because it's where some of our folklore, our tales are from, so I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, don't worry, I've got plenty more, gang, so here we go.
Oh,
Yeah,
plenty more. Let's hear
plenty
it.
more. So, all right, so now the Union owned the skies, and the Union owned the waters pretty much, except they didn't own underneath the waters, and that's because we had the H.L. Hunley. This was a tiny hand-cranked submarine that, was just about 34 feet long, and it was built from an old boiler and had 8 men turning a propeller by hand. You look at it, it's a death trap. I would not wanna be
No doubt, I would not want to have been in it.
okay. The submarine sank not once, but twice ever before seeing combat.
And,
Yeah.
it's kinda like the second time you at least I get it the first time they go, "Oh, okay, we didn't account for A, B, or C."
Yep.
But the second time you would think they go, "You know what? Maybe this is not a good idea."
Yeah, so August 29th, 1863, during a test run, 5 crew members died when she went down. Then October
Okay.
15th, later that same year, she sank again, this time killing all 8 of her second crew, including Horace
Wow.
Hunley, the man who invented it himself, the civilian inventor who had constructed it. He wasn't even in the Confederate military, but they raised it again, and then this time she made it to battle. On the night of February 17th, 1864, the little submarine slipped through the darkness off Charleston Harbor, and it had a spar torpedo. It was basically a bomb on the end of a long pole, and she approached
Okay.
USS Housatonic. This was a 1,240-ton sloop of war, massive, and it rammed the torpedo into the Union ship's hull. The Housatonic sank in minutes, and it was became the first warship ever destroyed by a submarine.
Oh, wow.
but the Humley
I
never
mean,
came back.
yeah, I'll give them credit for
Yeah,
that, go team.
yeah. So the Hunley never returned, lost at sea, and for 136 years, we didn't know what happened to her. And there were tons of theories that the torpedo's explosion breached her hull, a lucky shot from the Housatonic may have hit it, or that she collided with something in the dark because they didn't really have sonar or anything to see.
Mm.
Um, when they finally found her, they finally were able to raise her in the year 2000. They'd found her before that. The crew were still there at their posts. Their bones were just scattered across the interior. We still aren't 100% sure what killed it, but we're pretty sure it was just the explosion knocked her straight to the ground. So
Wow.
the Hunley claimed full 3 crews, and she is still available to visit. So we'll talk about that in our travels at the end. So,
My goodness. Wow.
all right.
Okay.
Now I think the best invention of the war, the most unexpected invention, is
Okay.
something we still use every day. Okay, so before the Civil War, soldiers had nowhere convenient to keep small items. They carried everything in these knapsacks, and they just had like crazy pockets sewn in everywhere, and it was uncomfortable, inefficient, and it would lose supplies in the battle. So a man named Henry C. Merriam, now he was in the U.S. Army. He
Okay.
saw this problem and he patented a solution. His design for an improved knapsack included a critical feature, a hip strap, and a dedicated pocketed position at the waist, allowing soldiers to carry essential gear without straining their backs or shoulders. So look at these, they just had the weird pockets all over and everything. We kind of had the front pockets and all that. So he invented the hip pocket that would go in the back. Now, Joseph Short received a patent for his own knapsack design, and his was focused on protecting soldiers' back from the crushing weight of the gear. And that was his version of the hip pocket. It almost is kind of like the what we call them, the man purses that slide around everybody's waist with the little Velcro backs.
Excuse me, those are called merces, but you're also, I think, talking about a fanny pack.
Fanny pack, yes, a fanny pack. This guy was the predecessor of that. So
Okay.
now mundane but revolutionary, right? The hip pocket
Yes.
was adopted army wide, and its basic design is here today. So every time you slip a phone into your back pocket, you need to thank a Civil War quartermaster named Henry C. Merriam.
Well, thank you very much, and I liked it when they decided that women were not using their pockets to carry spell components and actually need them.
But here we are. So I know a few friends who
Well,
do
I
need
mean,
to
the
carry
truth
their spell
is
components.
I do carry spell
Yeah,
components in mine,
say, wait a
but it's
minute.
not for everybody to know.
And it's not just women, I do it too. All right, so, okay, there one of my favorite things to come out of the Civil War, just because it was so weird, it didn't get much use, but it was the start of machine guns. So it started a bad trend in some ways, but this was a crazy thing. So it was before the Gatling gun, and this was
Okay.
called the Ager, and this guy who made weird things. Again, we love these inventors.
Mhm.
It looks like a piece of kitchen equipment at the top, right? And so it
Oh,
became known
wow.
as the coffee mill gun, the Ager gun. And it was you just this hopper on top. Instead of like belt fed ammunition and stuff, you filled the top with bullets and it just cranked it and the bullets fell down and shot. Now it was much faster than most rifles at the time, and one witness, reporter who watched it go to battle, said, "Now, all things ready, the diabolical grist of bullets in the hopper. The gunner turns the crank with his right hand, and then the grisly play begins."
Wow.
So, yeah. So it first saw combat at Lee's Mill during the siege of Yorktown, and General John Geary's regiment deployed 10 of them at once. Now it would be superseded by the Gatling gun very quickly, but single shot muskets were going away, and this is the proof right there. So,
Wow.
all right. So, now we did invent landmines in this war, because the Confederacy was outnumbered, outgunned, so they started doing a lot of unconditional warfare, and they called a land torpedo. So, we would now call it a landmine.
Yeah.
They basically were just explosive devices. Confederate Navy Commander Matthew Fontaine Maury, he developed electronically triggered naval mines, and General Gabriel Rains invented the Subterra shell, basically the first modern landmine. And, they ran a torpedo bureau, and they would keep coming up with these. They came up with the keg torpedo, a submarine mortar battery for naval use. Um, yeah, they admitted that this was not gentlemanly warfare, but
Yeah.
they did their quote was, "It is admissible to plant shells in a parapet to repel assault or in a road to stop pursuit." So,
Oh,
now the Union condemned them as infernal devices, and, they used a ton, though, during the battle, so
infernal devices, huh?
infernal devices. So,
I like that.
now one more odd thing, we're gonna go back to Lincoln here. He
Okay.
had he was, he was under the crushing weight of command during the Civil War, right? That's just gotta be the worst thing to be through, political backbiting, all that, and
Yeah.
he had a little document. You talk about the Lincoln letters. He had, I don't know if you knew, but he was very good with play with words. He was very folksy. He loved wordplay, and
Yeah.
he would, these generals had these grandiose names and stuff like that, and he's like, "No." So, the commander of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, General Robert E. Lee, no, he was Bobby Lee in, Lincoln's documents, and,
Bobby Lee.
Bobby
Okay.
Lee. Jefferson Davis was Jeffy D. So, and so he did that with a lot, of his documents, and that sounds a lot like somebody else we know in politics today who makes goofy names for his enemies and
Yeah.
his friends. So, just, one of those fun facts that popped out. Now, Confederacy, they collapsed in April 1865, but not
Okay.
all Southerners accepted defeat, right?
Yeah.
Thousands refused to live under Northern rule, and because they were facing prosecution for treason, they fled. A big group didn't go out west, they went to Mexico. And at the same time, Mexico was undergoing its own dramatic upheaval. The French
Yeah.
had invaded and they had installed Emperor Maximilian von Habsburg. And
Mhm.
sorry, my history failed me there. But he was basically a European puppet. And he was eager to attract settlers because he thought it would help stabilize his regime. So he
Yeah.
said, "Hey, come on down, Confederates, help me colonize this place." So there's this bizarre alliance of basically a handful of Confederate leaders, and they joined forces with this French emperor, and they were planned to call it the New Virginia Colony. And yeah, a lot of Confederate refugees, a lot of slaveholders seeking to preserve their way of life went down there, and they poured into central Mexico. They
Okay.
had names like Carlotta. There was even a discussion of a Confederate States of Mexico at one point. But Maximilian's empire collapsed in 1867. He was executed by Mexican Republicans. And without French protection, the Confederate exiles had to flee again. Some
Okay.
returned to the US and said, "All right, we screwed up." But some pressed further south. So, Brazil at that time, slavery was still legit there and still legal. And Emperor Don Pedro III welcomed the Confederate immigrants again. So between
Okay.
1865 and 1885, 10,000 to 20,000 Confederates made the voyage down to Brazil, and they called themselves Confederados, and they established entire towns. So there's still some of them there, names like New Texas, Americana, New Virginia, and it was just little pockets of the South down there in the tropics, and they brought some of their architecture, their farming techniques. They did bring Baptist and Methodist churches and a lot of their recipes. So that's why sometimes in Brazil you'll find some old Southern cooking, and you're like, "What?" So, um, now the defendant descendants of the Confederados still gather every year in the cemetery of Santa Barbara de Oeste, where they hold a
Okay.
festival in honor of their ancestors. They wave a Confederate flag, they play banjo music, and eat fried chicken. So, just a goofy remnant that's still there. So,
Wow.
okay.
So
Now,
okay.
the North Side had some other issues too. The Canadian conspiracy here. So, Canada was not neutral. Throughout the war, Montreal served as the Confederacy's largest foreign secret service. They, uh,
Really?
there was a sprawling network of spies, smugglers, and saboteurs, and they were just running with impunity all along the northern border. And they had $1 million of hard currency gold to fund their operations and their clandestine activities. So the city's hotels were like filled with Confederate agents. And so autumn 1864, the Confederate Congress passed the Secret Service Act, and that added another $1 million to the fund.
Wow.
Imagine that. That's Civil War time. So yeah, it culminated in the raid on St. Albans, October 15th, 1864. These guys
Okay.
all come in, check into the American House Hotel. Just weird that a lot of travelers are coming in, and over the 6 days, 20 of them come in, and then they start taking positions around town, and at
Right.
3 PM on October 19th, they attack. They herded terrified civilians into the town square. They announced this city is now in possession of the Confederate States of America. They robbed 3 banks. They netted about 200,000. It's not the million, but that would be about 3 million in today's currency, but not the million that they'd spent. Um,
Yeah.
and one citizen, Linus J. Morrison, he was shot and killed because he refused to obey. They attempted to set the town on fire, but their incendiary devices failed. So a couple buildings were damaged, but wasn't too bad. And those in St. Albans, Vermont, they tried to chase them, but they had fresh horses and head start. They got away, got over the Canadian border. The two armed posses couldn't catch them in time. So,
Okay.
okay, now U.S. government is pissed. So this was an act of war from a neutral territory. Canadian authorities, under pressure from Abraham Lincoln and Washington, they arrested about half the raiders. But they
Okay.
ruled that they were legitimate belligerents acting under orders from a Confederate government and therefore could not be extradited to the United States. So they were released on December 13th, 1864, and allowed passage back to the Confederate States. But the stolen 200,000 was returned to the US. So,
Wow. So they just let them go?
yep, just let him go. So,
Okay.
all right. So that's the weird stuff. Let's get to some ghosts real quick. I think
Uh,
that you guys have
I
waited.
can't believe that's the weird stuff.
So, all
That's
right,
all
we
I
talked
can
about,
say is, like, seriously, that's the weird stuff.
yeah. So we talked about Antietam, bloodiest day, the bloodiest. So September 17th, 1862, 23,000 men killed, wounded, or missing. So
That's
intense
crazy.
that the creek ran red for days. And there's a few areas. The Bloody Lane, which was a sunken farm road, it became a slaughterhouse. Union troops poured fire into a Confederate column that was stuck in there, and the bodies stacked 3 or 4 deep. And,
Oh,
yeah, that there are numerous times people walk by that, and, of course, they hear gunfire, distant screams. That's just a common thing we hear on a lot of battlefields. It's
yeah.
just sound of gunfire and marching boots. It could be reenactors, but if it's late at night, you're finding something else. But, the thing there is, got a few people have reported it, and we even have a recording of it, was this kinda chant that just says, "Give us water. Give us water."
Water?
Yeah, they were like they're dying of thirst, and, yeah, it's just a chilling little thing there, um, now Burnside Bridge is this small stone bridge over Antietam Creek, and for hours, there was basically a handful of Georgia sharpshooters holding off the entire Ninth Army of the Union, and, they just were on the bridge, they had good position, and they were able to slow everything down. Um, Now what people see there is they have that smell of gunpowder out of nowhere, and then they'll see shadows on the bridge looking out like, sharpshooters. So, just it's that smell that gets me on that one because
Yeah.
I was there and I smelt it when I went on that bridge. So it could just
Oh,
again,
really?
it could be remnants of reenactors, but the fact that it's been reported for a long time, it's pretty great, over a century.
Yeah.
So, now, there is, Stones River. This is
Okay.
an important one. Battle of Stones River. Now, this is near Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Now, it had a higher percentage of casualties than Shiloh or Bull Run, but it was this one wooded area called the Slaughter Pen that was, these we name these things after how bad the battle was.
Yeah.
So there is this strange blue mist, like a fog that kind of moves against the wind, and it has been seen there a ton. And people see shadowy figures coming out of the mist. Supposedly is one of the inspirations for John Carpenter, for the fog.
The fog?
Yeah, but there's a Union colonel named Julius Peter Garouche, and he was
Oh,
riding next to General William Rosecrans, and a cannonball took his head off. So
like
and
clean
his
off?
clean off, and his body stayed in the saddle for like a minute and a half before it fell over.
Uh, okay, okay.
So guess what ghost they see there? A headless
Would this
horseman.
be a headless horseman
A
ghost?
headless horseman, you called it. So, visitors and park rangers to this day have seen the ghost of a Union colonel, headless, in a blue uniform, riding silently and often accompanied by that strange blue mist.
Well, I mean, if you it's kind of a big deal. Like, if your head gets blown off, no offense, but
Yeah, it's gonna
yeah,
you're not gonna realize you're dead for a few minutes. So, well, your head's gonna
exactly.
notice in a second, but the rest of your body takes a minute to catch up. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna have a leftover spirit now, I don't know why the horse is still there, but, it is a thing. So, that never I always worried about that with a headless horseman. Why is the horse a ghost? So,
You need props.
that's true, that's true, and
I'm just
tension.
gonna throw
Gotta
that
bring
out there. You do need props.
Okay, now Shiloh, we talked a little
Yes,
bit about that, is it has a national cemetery there, and it holds a statue called the Weeping Angel. Hey, we know that from Doctor Who, and
yes.
supposedly her expression changes. So by day, she looks kinda sad, but by moonlight, she's smiling. Just a weird thing. People say she moves just like a fraction. Um, Now, the big thing in there is the Tennessee River. The ghost there that most people claim is it's not, soldiers or anything like that. We had the glowing wounds, but they often see a drummer boy, like a young boy, tapping on a drum. You can hear it. And then you follow it and you'll see this kid before he vanishes. So,
Okay.
they don't know which side because he's, a drummer boy. They didn't really wear uniforms much. But this one also is just kinda luminescent. Again, don't really know. Um, Harper's Ferry, John Brown's raid in 1859, we wrote about that in the new book.
Yeah.
Um, Harper's Ferry changed hands 8 times during the Civil War because it was so important for crossroads. And so that place is filled with ghosts of both sides marching constantly. Um, Now, the small firehouse where Brown was captured has a ghost with that some say is John Brown, but it's that's all cosplay ghosts, right? It's always
Yeah.
the most famous guy there. That ghost is seen to be holding the door closed, and it actually you can't open the door when he's there. So they'll see him on one side, they'll try to pull on it from the other, and it won't open.
Well,
So
that makes sense. He's probably in the middle of a very important meeting and you're trying to, intrude.
okay, some quick ones. Of course, Andersonville, the infamous Confederate prison, 13,000 Union soldiers died. Of course, they say the land is cursed, and you can hear voices calling out in the night and shadows moving along the stockade. It's considered one of the most haunted locations in the United States. To be fair, when I went there, it felt calm and peaceful. Especially there was this miracle fountain where water came out when they had no clean water, and lightning struck, and suddenly a spring started flowing. Um, it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's, talk about divine intervention again. Um, yeah, now, I don't know, there was, Fort Zachary Taylor down in Key West we went to. The fort never saw battle, but thousands in it died of yellow fever and tuberculosis. And, you hear phantom coughing in there all the time.
I don't
So,
love that either. No.
all right. So, we'll go into other battles like Manassas, Chancellorsville, Appomattox at another time, just because those need full deep dives. Some of these do too. But anyway, so it's a year of the horse. Remember, Erica, as well as
Yes, year of
the
the horse.
ancestors. So I've got another horse story for you. Okay.
Okay. Are we taking this out with a horse story?
We're taking it out with a horse story for end of the year. So, the it's gonna tell you there was this horse's original owners was a Confederate family named Gullet,
Okay.
and, this horse has some sort of you tell me, alright? You tell me. Okay, 3 brothers from the Gullet family, okay? They are all riding this horse at different times. So, the first is young Confederate Captain S. Isidore Gullet. He got shot in the saddle.
Okay.
2 of his other brothers were killed on the horse, riding it at different times in strange accidents. So the family willed the horse to a nephew, said, "Get rid of this. You do what you
Mhm.
want to with it." So he passed the curse on, basically. So the horse was then given to this other troop, and they used it for 3 days. We don't know what happened after those 3 days, but they got rid of it. They didn't like that horse.
Wow.
So it was given or sold to the Union Ohio's 98th Regiment somehow. And this again, 3 lives of 3 officers rode it into battle, 3 lives gone. So,
I don't like these statistics at all.
yeah. So after the third officer was killed, the chain of command fell to a man known only as Lieutenant Milliner. That may be a this is the muddy waters of researching this. So he was now the senior officer left in the field, and with no other mount apparently available because the battle had been going to bed, he climbed onto that jinxed horse. Now this one, it didn't kill him, but he
Good to
didn't get
know.
away unscathed. While in the saddle, he was struck by a mini ball that shattered his arm, and so it
Wow.
and that permanent injury rest of his life. So the story kind of ends there. There is no record of what happened to the animal. Did it survive the war? We don't know. Did it finally meet its end? We don't know. The history is silent. And then the scary thing is we don't know its name. We don't know the horse's name. So it was
Really?
documented that it was the Gullet family horse. So
That's
now
bizarre. to say the least.
So here we go. The final twist of fate.
Okay.
Confederate soldier with the last name Gullett, no first name given, but probably from the same family line because he's from the same area, everything. He is cited as the owner of the contents of the rectal acorn. So
Wow.
if it's the same family, oh my gosh, that's just
That's a lot of, spiritual energy around that
yeah.
family that has a butt plug. Um, Mark, I don't think this can go anywhere else.
But, yeah, for your travel today, you can visit the H.L. Hunley. It
Mhm.
is on public display in the Warren Lash Conservation Center in North Charleston, South Carolina, and it's pretty crazy. Um, Something to see and you realize how many men died in it, as an experimental craft, and it is in its tank because that's the only way they can keep it, to prevent corrosion on its iron hull. And, you'll go there, they'll still be working on, preserving it. So, pretty crazy. So,
Very crazy.
all right. Are there ghosts there? I'm sure there are. But,
Yes, yes, I can confirm, yes.
all right. So thank you, travelers, for riding with us in the Civil War on our jinxed horse. And, please, seek out our Patreon if you can. Throw us $1. You get on our amazing Discord, and you also get, fun stuff that we do on there, and we are pretty open to chat on that. And then, otherwise, we'll be doing these on YouTube as much as we can, and the episodes air on podcasts on Friday. Tune in on your favorite podcasting platform. With all that, Erica, anything last words on the Civil War?
No, but I feel like I've learned a lot, and I hope our travelers feel the same way. I'm, like, so weird, but I'm very excited that pockets were invented. Let's
Yeah.
continue with
Yes, and, I am, yeah, I am no Ken Burns, gang, but I'm doing my best. So, when you're out there visiting your Civil War memorials or your Civil War battlefields, remember it was the darkest time in our nation's history. It is a terrible time, but a lot of good came from it overall. We advanced, we've become much better people overall, and I don't think you need to swallow an acorn or put it up your butt if you really need to send a message. Just a text, it's fine, and we'll see you on the other side.